I'm on fire to do this because I want women to not have to live freaking support check to support check and really make their own damn money. Gosh, going through divorce, I mean, your entire safety and security has been like completely rocked. Your identity, all of it. For me, it was a huge, huge game changer after I got divorced and why I started my business. When you have financial stability and you're making your own damn money, it does create a sense of security and confidence and all of that. The fact that I can help give somebody a voice, that for me is so damn fulfilling.
Hi, I'm Sarah Schmidt. I'm 52 years old, and I can honestly say that I have never felt better. For the first 50 years of my life, I navigated some pretty fucking hard things that I like to call my Holy Schmidt moments. They include things like being diagnosed with cancer, navigating my sexuality, adopting children, two divorces, losing my dad, and having a biological child in my 40s. After decades of some really, really hard work, I have fallen deeply in love with myself and my life. Turns out that embracing the magic and the expansion that comes with getting older, it isn't a bad place to start. I'm here to prove that life doesn't have to decline with age. In fact, it gets a whole lot better. On Holy Schmidt, we are going to dive into my curiosities around wellness and longevity and mindset. And we are going to do it with really vulnerable, thoughtful conversations with people that I really love and admire. This season, we are going to celebrate and honor growth and transformation and find profound beauty in connection. Welcome to the show. Welcome back to Holy Schmidt. I am very excited to introduce you to my friend Amber Shaw. This recording that you're about to listen to is the second that I have done with Amber. The first aired on her podcast a few months ago. Amber and I share lots of things in common, including a passion for being our best selves and helping others be theirs. Amber is a coach who specifically works with women who are divorced and helping them launch their own coaching businesses. What really, really drew me in, though, is the way Amber talks so authentically about why she does what she does, who she is in the world, her role as a mom, and her willingness to examine all the things that could help her be her best self. I invite you to go deep into this episode with Amber. It's a great conversation and one that I hope spurs you to start asking questions about how you can be your best self. I hope you enjoy this episode with Amber. Go deep with us into big questions like, how can we be our best selves? For our kids, yes, but for us too. Enjoy. Amber Shaw, it is so great to have you on Holy Schmidt. We were just talking about the episode we did together on your podcast and what a great experience that was for me. I have to say that I haven't been podcasting for very long. And the experience of connecting with you and talking with you, and I said this before we hit record, I said some things I've never heard myself say before. You created a space where I felt so comfortable and safe. And I felt like we just were able to talk about some like really real stuff. And that's such a gift. It doesn't happen all the time.
Well, I so appreciate that. I'm like, did I pull, who's the newscaster that always like makes people, Barbara Walters. I'm like, did I create a Barbara Walters moment for you? No, I would never compare myself to the legend. But, one of the things that before we were recording today that you said that I really appreciated was you said, talking about that episode, that it was a very like almost like calming episode. And I think that, and it was a little bit of a shift from maybe how I show up energetically, like on social media. But it's really interesting because I love showing that side of me. I think that it's not a side. That's why I love podcasting so much, because I love being able to show that side of me that I don't necessarily show as much. There is so much more of a deeper, softer side that when I'm in the space of, somebody that's also got a lot of feminine energy and we're really kind of diving into that. I mean, I love those conversations. So I enjoyed our conversation so much.
I'm excited to just get to know you better. That's just going to be a gift for me today. But I also want our listeners, not just to get to know you, but to kind of get a sense of like what makes you tick, because you're a person who's doing some really, I think, important work in the world. And it might be just helpful to hear a little bit about, I don't know, how you think about who you are in the world and why you do what you do.
Yeah. I think about this often, as far as, because my story was I was in corporate America for 18 years. I was in a very successful sales career, and it really kind of, my life got turned upside down when I was getting ready to turn 40. I found myself in the middle of a extremely traumatic and devastating, and I use those big words intentionally because for me, it was all of it and then some, but a very traumatic divorce. And there I was, 40, starting over, what I felt essentially starting over, grieving the loss, grieving the life that I thought was supposed to be mine. And I was faced with just like a lot of really big, I think, questions for myself of like, okay, like I'm getting ready to turn 40. I think that is a monumental age. And a lot of us look at our life and are like, okay, like how are we feeling about where we're at right now? And what does that look like? And I was looking at my life thinking, okay, like, gosh, like what's next? And really what I was presented with was a lot of things that I was unhappy with in my life. I was going through this divorce. I was really dissatisfied in my life. I felt in my job. I mean to say, I was really dissatisfied in my job. I had felt this calling for probably like 10 years that I was meant for more, that I was meant to serve people. And I just couldn't really figure out what that looked like. I was also very, very unhappy with myself. I have a long history of eating disorders, being very body obsessed. My worthiness and just my confidence and everything was so low. And so I really, turning 40 in that kind of time in my life was it was such a monumental time, and it really changed the trajectory of my life. And kind of what was birthed out of that, though, first of all, I mean, a whole new me was really birthed out of that. But also what came out of that was this beautiful career that I have now, which is helping divorced women to move forward, and specifically to really to move forward financially and to really achieve financial stability. And I help that through I help them by creating online businesses. And just like where I was 5 years ago, right? Teaching women how to turn their expertise and their experience into a coaching business. And that for me, when I created my business, it was the thing that healed me from divorce, because it allowed me to step into my power and my confidence. And at the same time, I was making money, right? And so I was really creating that financial stability for myself. And so kind of going back to your question of like, what makes you tick? I think about that a lot, because when I get on that call with that woman, or get in the DMs with that woman who has gotten to the other side of whether or not it was a divorce or it was a traumatic event of her own, and she's really looking to take that pain and turn it into purpose. The fact that I can help give somebody a voice and show them how to create a platform and show them how to help other women, that for me is so damn fulfilling.
Do you remember that first person who you coached?
Yeah.
Tell me about her.
She, this woman, and which a lot of women that find me are women that want to help in the divorce space, want to help other women in the divorce space. I think, and going through divorce, like it is a game changer. It can be a life changer, a game changer. It can be, even if you go through a divorce that wasn't as tumultuous, right? That it was, things seemed pretty amicable. It's still, you are really starting your life over in some sense. And so that woman that came to me, it was very, very, very similar. She reminded me so much of where I was, 5 years ago, where she went through this extremely difficult divorce. There was a lot of cheating. There was a lot of, money hiding and secret relationships and just all of these like crazy things, like a Netflix movie. It was wild. And I was so inspired, though, that she had really just gone through all of that and then gotten to the other side, and now is standing tall saying, I want to use my experience to help others so that nobody else has to go through this. And that for me, was just really, really inspiring. And I find I attract a lot of women that are in that place, that's what really lights me up, is helping them through that.
I just hear in you this sense of satisfaction, right? Purpose,
Yeah.
and then this I don't know, persistence, determination, conviction that, there is something on the other side. There is something better. Where does that come from in you?
Oh, it's funny. I get asked that question a lot, and it's hard for me to pinpoint exactly like where that comes from, because I think I've always been that way. I've always been that way of really, and sometimes it's to my detriment. Sometimes it's a fault of like kind of having that go-getter, that drive, that a little bit of the perfectionist kind of mindset that also can be my shadow too at sometimes. But for me, I've always, and I think this is a lot to do with how I grew up and my dad and all the things, but I've just always had this desire to always just be the best version of me. And this really, I think, it's because I've always had that in me, deep in me. I think what really, though, was the turning point for me of like, how do I really then become the best version of me even when shit is falling apart? Right? How do I, because it's one thing to be the best version of you when everything is going well, right? Okay, like for me, right? And that's one thing. But I think for me, the first time that I was really faced with how do I become the best version of me, this mindset that's always been instilled in me since I was a kid, but now you're throwing a whole new wrench into it. Right now, the world's falling apart, is when my dad died. And my dad was my hero. My dad dying was, at that point, I was 30 years old. And I didn't know how it was going to go on. I never knew pain like that. And I get emotional talking about it because I'd never in my life experienced such a profound loss. And I realized very quickly, though, that I had a choice. I had a choice that I could sit and just, let my life fall apart and just be a victim of my circumstances, or I could look at my situation through the lens of which I always have through my entire life, because I'm scrappy and I'm a fighter and I do whatever I got to do to be the best version of me. And I can freaking put on my big girl pants and figure out, hey, how do I move forward through this? And that for me was like really kind of that was really the first situation for me. I think that really changed everything. And then when I was 10 years later, I found myself in another profound loss. I mean, we were just talking about this, that grief is definitely emotion that I think we don't talk about enough with divorce, that grieving the life that we thought was ours, right? Grieving our partner, it feels like a death, all the things. And it was a very, very hard time for me. But again, I had the choice. I believe we always have a choice. I had the choice of I could either continue to, drink myself to, oblivion and fall apart day in and day out and the woe is me, or no, I could take a look at my life and be like, okay, this sucks. And this is one of the hardest things I've ever had to navigate, but I have a choice. I have a choice to do things differently and start over and make that setback my comeback. And that's exactly what I did.
There's so many things you just said that I want to call out. How can we make a setback a comeback? I mean, that's catchy, but it really is. I think it's really powerful. And inherent in that is this realization that we do have a choice. I think for so many people and for a lot of women in particular, there's this sense of I have no choice. I have these kids, I have this spouse, I have parents I'm responsible to, I have siblings, I'm an aunt, I have a job, I have laundry to do, I have meals to cook, I have school meetings to attend. There are holidays to prepare for. There are things we have to do. There's a birthday party. I need the goodie bags just so I don't have a choice. That mindset really fucks us up.
Yeah, it does, because that is a limitation, a limiting belief. That is that right there, to have that mindset as a choice, right? Like because guess what? I still have to do all that shit too, right? Like you still have to do all that shit. We all still have to do all that shit. But at the end of the day, it is still a choice. Could I choose not to do the goodie bags? Yeah, I could choose not to do the goodie bags. Maybe the deeper question is what would it say about what's the story you're telling yourself that people would say about you if you didn't do the goodie bags, right? Like we always have a choice, right? Some of these things that I think, and yes, like, do I have a choice to like not feed my kid dinner? Yeah, I do have a choice to do that. Is that in alignment though with the woman that I want to be? right? And so I think sometimes, though, that's what's really important, I think, of sometimes when we go through these big kind of what I call midlife interruptions, right? Things like divorce or whatever that can look like. It can be an opportunity to take a look at your life and really evaluate what are the things that I'm doing that are in alignment with the woman I want to be and what are not. And really unapologetically being willing to say no to the things that are not. So, I think that especially like when you become a single mom, like your time is so limited. A lot of these things that you used to do. And so, sometimes it is about being able to say no to things, but then really being able to be okay with that. And so, for instance, just using that goodie bag example, it's like, okay, if you're feeling like so much, some of these things, it's like you're running yourself crazy, running to Hobby Lobby and doing this to put together these goodie bags, and you're making yourself miserable because the only person you're making miserable is you, and then probably your kids too, because you're probably being short with them, and then all the way that goes down. But really, it's like, why won't you just say no to the goodie bags? Is it because you're afraid that there's judgment there? Like, is this a people-pleasing thing that we have to look at, right? So I'm a huge believer that, we all have a choice. And if you continue to tell yourself that you don't have a choice, well, then that's a red flag for you to like dive a little deeper into that. Where does that come from? Right. What's the story you're telling yourself, right?
You've worked with a lot of women who've come to you, and this crazy crisis on the precipice of transformation moment. And when you think about, all of them, I'm going to ask you to make some generalizations, which may or may not be fair to do, but what are some of the things you hear most that women are telling themselves that's getting in their way?
Well, I think one of the biggest ones, because I work with women, over 35, really a lot of the women that come to me are over 40. It's one of the biggest ones is I'm too old to start over, right? That's a big one. Another one is like I'm damaged goods. That's one. Another one, and I'm a real stickler for this one, which is I don't have time to take care of myself. Again, this goes back to my just belief that we all have a choice always. And so I really, I have a hard time with that one. But yeah, like I don't have time for myself. I think that I also think some of the things that I hear sometimes is, it's particularly if we're talking about like even the divorce situation is like, well, my life is so miserable because my ex is X, Y, and Z, right? And really, is it more so because it's a boundary issue, right? Do we need to work on maybe some boundaries, right? Maybe a little projecting and kind of blame. But yeah, I think that those are, especially, and listen, if you're listening to this and you're somebody that does feel those things, first of all, I want to normalize those things. Like, I said all of those things to myself. Like, I just want to be really clear on that. Like
we all have, right?
Yeah. Like all of those things. Like I've struggled with worthiness and feeling good enough. All of those things. I've outsourced my worth for years. And I think that, so I just want to normalize that. But I do think that, and this is where I always say, like when I talk about saying something like, oh, setback, your setback can be a comeback. I really do believe that when you go through a big life transition like a divorce, if you allow it, if you are able to lean in and allow it, it can be one of your greatest lessons. There's so many lessons you can learn. Just like we were talking about before, you're talking about with Peter, like really diving into like kind of just pulling apart like your situation when you're going through divorce and all of that. Like, I think that if you can get curious and really allow yourself to ask the hard questions, there's so much you can learn about yourself and the way that you show up and the way you show up in relationships and all the things that can be very, very valuable if you allow yourself to go there, which is hard.
I would suspect that what's underneath a lot of those messages you just articulated that you hear is fear.
Yeah. I mean, fear. Well, really, I think what comes up is mostly and this is normal. It's like fear of the unknown, right? It's like, yeah, fear of what's next. I mean, going through divorce, I mean, your entire safety and security for most, I mean, it was for me, like your entire, just safety and security has been like completely rocked. Everything, your identity, all of it, right? Yeah. So yeah, a lot of fear, a ton of fear, a lot of fear and a lot of anxiety. Those are the two big emotions, right? A lot of fear around money, around financial stability. This is why and even on my Instagram, I'm like, I'm on fire to do this because I want women to not have to live freaking support paycheck to support check to support check and really make their own damn money. That for me it was a huge game changer after I got divorced and why I started my business. Because I think that creates, when you have financial stability and you're making your own damn money, it does create a sense of security and confidence and all of that nobody can take away from you, right? That is your own.
When you encounter that fear, I mean, a lot of your work is very tactical. It's sort of, this is a program that you can do. But how do you help people tackle the emotions that are underneath it all? Because I think when I get beyond the fear, there's a lot of things I can do, but so much of us get so stuck in it, right? I'm sure there are women listening that are listening to us talk today that are like, yeah, but what do I do about it? I'm afraid,
Sure.
What do I do about it? I know I have choices, but I can't make them because I feel frozen in fear.
Well, I can tell you that for me, and this is what I see, in coaching women through this and also through my own transformation, is action is what accelerates the healing. And even though, you can feel paralyzed in fear. And I want to normalize that paralyzed in fear, overwhelmed by fear, anxiety, all of that. It is about taking small action. I don't even care if the small action is just, girl, just get up and brush your damn teeth for the day. It doesn't even, and I always say too, I get
pants.
that. Yeah, put on pants. I get asked this question a lot of okay, somebody who's really going through it, what would you how would you guide them on taking action? And, for me, it's always about where I always start with this is getting back to the basics. I just did a podcast with somebody just a couple weeks ago where I was talking about this, where it was like, if you are somebody and you're listening to this and you are feeling stuck and you're feeling stuck that you can't take action, get back to the basics and make some very simple goals and just start showing up for yourself, right? What I mean by that is, girl, start move your body, get out and take a walk, right? Drink some water, go, get some sleep, and commit to it and be okay, this week, if you're somebody, maybe you've been numbing your pain with drinking a little too much wine during the week. Well, commit to yourself. You know what? I'm going to get good sleep this week. I'm not going to drink this week, and actually do it. Just take these kind of small baseline steps and just commit to it and show up for yourself. And because when you can show up for yourself in the small spaces, then that gives you the confidence to be able to make the big choices. But you've got to just start small. And again, if the goal is to just get out of bed, girl, set an alarm and commit to getting out of bed. Okay, every day this week, I'm going to get out of bed by, 8 a.m. or whatever time that is, or set whatever it looks like. But start small and build up to it.
That's so, I resonate so much with what you're saying. One of the reasons why I go to the gym every single morning and lift heavy weight 5 days a week is because I have made the connection between when I do hard things, I can do more hard things.
Yes.
It is not, yes, I want to build muscle and I want to look great and I want to feel fit and lean. That's a bonus. But there's a mental shift for me in the effort of doing that hard thing. And the harder it is, the better. No one's ever walked out of the gym and thought, oh shit, I wish I hadn't done that. God, I wish I hadn't gone and exercised. I've never ever heard anybody say that.
No.
But for me, the benefit is mental. And it sets my day with this clear living example of I did something I might not have wanted to do, I wasn't super excited about, that was really hard.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how all the other hard stuff that comes at me, because as a mom and as somebody who, does a lot of other things besides being a mom, there's always hard shit. I never know what it's going to be. It never ceases to amaze me how surprising it can be.
Yes.
I handle it better.
Yeah.
I move through it. It doesn't fluster me. Now, the same for me goes with when I make a choice to eat something super protein dense and very healthy and whole food based for breakfast, I am set usually for the rest of the day. I made that choice to nourish myself in this really, really good way. It's easier for me then to continue to nourish myself in all kinds of ways, not just what I eat, but how I talk to myself, how I interact with people, how I seek out connection, all those ways in which nourishing, right, can happen. It's so interesting, I think, how these things are just, they're ripples. And I mean, you talked about sleep. Oh my God, sleep. This morning I was listening to a podcast with Peter Attia and Rich Roll, two guys that I really admire. I've been listening to Peter for a really long time. He talked about exercise as being the single most important thing that you can do to improve your health, and in particular, grow your brain. If you want to be able to do hard things, like let's say you want to start a coaching business and you're reinventing yourself, start exercising, because you're going to actually grow your brain and be more able to do and tackle intellectual challenges. Isn't that interesting?
Well, yeah, but also, I mean, and it makes sense to me too, because even when you're talking about the protein thing, even from like a science thing, the reason why also you probably feel more stable is because your blood sugar is more stable. So you got better energy, like your mind. Yeah. So you're making better choices. Like you're not you feel good. So, but yeah, the exercise piece of it, I think that we definitely, we underestimate the power of like some of these baseline things of like getting sleep, fueling your body. You talk to successful entrepreneurs, and the reason why I think that all of it, like most of us, have these kind of regimens where we're consistent with like taking care of our bodies, having quiet time, like because we know that in order to show up and really be on our A game, which if you're thinking about being an entrepreneur, I mean, this is why I gave up drinking 6 months ago, because I was like, this is affecting my ability to show up and be on my A game. Like you've got to focus on these baseline things, very, very simple, so that you can operate from a place of strength and clarity. And even if you're listening to this and you're not thinking about becoming an entrepreneur, this is just true for just everyday situations that get thrown your way. You are going to be able to handle them and navigate them better when you're taking care of yourself. It's like the bare minimum that you can do.
I really think it's time as women that we stop like the glorification of self-sacrifice.
Yes.
You bring a bunch of moms together, and it is very likely that the conversation is going to be all about all the things I felt I needed to do that were so overwhelming, and the really long list, and all the things I couldn't do for myself because I was doing all these things for everybody else. And there's going to be all this, oh, you got it, girl. Yes, this is awful. You'll be hard pressed to find someone who stands up in the middle of that conversation and says, why the fuck are we doing this?
And what
and
are
praising
we teaching
each other for it.
And what are we teaching our kids?
Well, I think that's the next piece I wanted to go to with you is your parenting, because I've been through a big transformation and this whole like new career and new way of thinking about myself, and God, I'm such a better mom than I was 3 years ago. I really am. Now, some of it is just the longer you're a mom, I mean, you should get better at it over time.
I mean, is that true? I don't know, because then the kids just go into different stages and then you're thrown with all new shit. So I feel like I'm constantly reinventing myself as a mom, with every new stage of my kids. So there's that.
There's that too. Let's just be real. The more fulfilled, the more content, the happier, the more engaged I am in life, the better I am at being a mom.
Yeah, for sure.
Talk about how your parenting has changed over the last 5 years as you've been like building this whole new Amber.
I think for a long time, I don't think I know because I've done a lot of work around this. I was going to say, I think for a long time, I got a lot of validation from having the super mom identity. That, that self-sacrificing, I do everything for everybody all the time. And at the end of the day, like I'm the miserable one, for me, that's what it was like. And it was when I really had to dig deep on is that that was a situation that I was creating for myself. And that even though that I had a choice. I had a choice to ask for help. Couldn't stop being a mom. And I didn't want to stop being, I could have chose to stop being a mom, but I didn't want to. I wanted to be a mom. But I could have chose to ask for help. I could have chose to say no to some things. But what I learned about myself is that feeling of being needed was something that was the payoff for me. And so I think for me, one of the things that I've learned, because I've had to really reevaluate some things going from two parents living in the home to a single mom trying to do it, that I can't do it all. Yeah. I can't. I physically cannot run a company and parent, two teenagers and do it all myself. I cannot. And there are times where, I find myself, one of the things that you asked kind of like what's changed, I find myself being a little bit more vulnerable in front of my children and saying things like, you know what, Mom, I'm doing the best I can, you guys. Today's a really hard day for me. Today's a really hard day for me. And I think that what I've noticed, a beautiful thing that's come of that, when me, obviously I tailor what I share with them and what's age appropriate, and not putting the burden on them. However, I think what I've noticed is that it's just created this kind of two-way street with vulnerability, right? Like they're also being, I'm showing them it's okay to open up, and they're opening up to me as well. And so I think for me, I have also, I share this example all the time because I just this is the perfect example of like how my parenting has changed. I went from being like, oh my God, I have to do everything perfectly all the time, and I have to do all the things, and the laundry always has to be folded and put away, and you can't have any dishes in the sink and all this kind of stuff. And it's not like my house
has to look like it's ready to be put on the market at any moment.
1,000%. Like this was like the life I lived forever, and this was the pressure I put on myself. Well, like some of the simple things when I say of like just like admitting like, okay, like I can't do it all. Like I don't even match socks anymore. I bought a bin. Two things I've done. I bought a bin that we all put all of our socks in there. And then we all, since we're all about the same shoe size, we all wear the same socks. I just buy universal socks for the three of us. And that was just one small way though, that I was like, okay, you know what? Like, yeah, some moms may look at me and may judge me. Whatever. But like,
because I'm thinking about all the time that I've spent, and we have two homes for three of my kids. And how much time I spend trying to find the matching socks.
Fucking it. I'm sick of it.
What am I doing?
I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. Yeah. Who cares? Who cares? I'm not doing it anymore. Right. So I think for me, one of the things that I've changed in my parenting too is just unapologetically drawing the line in the sand and saying, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. This is not, because I'm able to see like me putting all of my energy like into this thing is not, like that's taking away from maybe some of these other things that actually can move the needle and making me feel good during the day and like how, show up as a good mom. Right. So I just think for me, that's been kind of the biggest shift, is just allowing myself to ask for help and being okay with saying no to things.
I had a big awareness. This was a while back already. I mean, I'm a real perfectionist by nature.
Same.
And I was really I just got a lot of good reinforcement growing up for all of that effort to be such a good girl and do everything so well and not need anybody or God forbid inconvenience anyone. I felt like my A+ effort was required for all things. And there was a moment, and I remember being in a boardroom actually, and it dawned on me that I was the only woman in the boardroom, by the way, and I was the youngest by a decade. It dawned on me that they wouldn't know the difference between my A+ and my B- effort. And yet I was bending over backwards trying to get the A+. And I started looking at all the places in my life where I was doing that. And I started asking myself what message I was sending to my kids. I was telling my kids, guys, it's just really important that we're learning. The grade is not the point here,
Right.
All we're here to learn. And I had a kid who was struggling with the fact that she didn't know everything, and she'd go to school and be so frustrated that she didn't know it. And I'm like, that's why you're going to school. You're actually not supposed to know the material.
Right.
You're going there to learn it, and that I realized that I was saying one thing to her and doing one thing to myself and confusing all of us in the process. And so I made this intentional effort to start just trying to get a B-. And it was such a relief. I mean, and I don't know how much actual chronological time I saved, but the mental angst I had, wondering if I was doing it perfectly, disappeared. And all of a sudden there was more room in my brain, in my heart, and ultimately, yes, in time for so many other things. And I think so many of us, are conditioned that there's this there's like this level that we have to hit all the time with all things.
Yes.
And nothing short of that is acceptable. Yep. We would never, ever, ever as parents say this to our children, and yet we are saying it to them by the way we treat ourselves and the expectations we put on ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they know it.
Yeah. I mean, I totally agree. And obviously as a perfectionist, I can totally understand that. I will tell you that, like, for me, one of my biggest challenges with starting my business, I had to learn that, like, if I was ever going to get shit done, I had to let go of that perfectionist mindset, because I do not have time to spend 2 hours on a piece of content, because I'm afraid that, like, it's got to be perfect. And so same thing in parenting and all of that. So I completely agree with that. I will tell you too, one of the other things that really was kind of a game changer for me, that after I got divorced, and like obviously my time with my kids was really cut in half, because my ex-husband's very involved. He's a great dad. And the amount of time that I got with them and do have is less, right? And one of the things that's been a really valuable tool for me in connecting with my kids is really trying to understand their love language, because this was something for me that, and one of the lessons that I learned when I got divorced is that I don't know that I really understood my ex-husband's love language. And I think that the way that I show love is through acts of service. But what I realized was that, and I thought, and I can say this because I've done a lot of work of looking back of, like, where was the disconnect and all these things. Like, I think I thought in my mind it was a combination. It was like me also assuming that identity of, like, the super mom and doing everything and all of that. And I just assumed that, like, if I, because I did everything, that he would know how much I loved him. But then because that wasn't his love language, he didn't really appreciate all of that. So then where did that leave me feeling? That left me feeling underappreciated. And it was like this crazy vicious cycle. And so I know for me, that was a really valuable lesson. And so taking a look at my kids and really understanding. So I know now that, like, my daughter Avery, her love language, actually both of my kids, and I think that a lot of kids have this love language. You kind of learn your love language, I think, as you age and mature. But I can tell right off the bat. I mean, I know Avery, my daughter, is quality time. That for her is a huge one. And so I take a solo trip with her every year, just the two. And she does not like when I invite other people. Like, I tried to invite my mom one year and she was not happy with me. And it's just so funny to me, because I would never really realize that, though, because she's a teenager. She spends the majority of her time in her room. I come in to talk to her. She doesn't want to, so it blows my mind that she is a quality time girl, but she is. And so that's made a difference. And also, my son, I mean, he also is a quality time, and his love language of how he shows love is through acts of service. So he loves, like, being able to do things for me. So that, I think, if you're listening to this, I think that can be just as a parent. There are, in fact, that the author, I can't remember the author that wrote the 5 love languages, but he wrote a book about understanding the 5 love languages for the kids, about how to identify that. That was really a game changer for me, for sure, in parenting.
I had kind of a moment when you were talking, because what actually clarified for me is I didn't like my husband's love language because it didn't make me feel good, because I didn't feel like I was good at that. And it didn't prove that I was good at loving him. Like, I needed to love him in a certain way so that I could feel like I was good at being his partner. And I wasn't willing to be vulnerable enough to make mistakes, to love him the way he needed to be loved.
Yeah, and I can totally say, what I was going to say is, like, what, and you were going to tell me, his love language is getting blowjobs. I was like, girl, don't worry about that. Nobody, all women fall short. All women fall short on that one. No, but I know what you're saying, though. No,
I grew up in this, like, it's all acts of service.
Yeah.
It's all acts of service. You do things for other people. You just do things for other people, and they will believe that you are good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you will show them love. And for him, it wasn't acts of, that wasn't it.
Same with my ex-husband. And that's the same thing. That's what I'm saying.
But I couldn't let go of the old narrative, because I wasn't willing to be that vulnerable with myself and question whether all the, what I had grown up, I needed to be in control of it.
Yeah. And
there was this real insecurity in me.
Well, and I don't know about you, but my ex-husband, his love language is definitely like, his is physical touch. And what I realized, and this is what's really funny, is I actually know now about myself, my love language in which I like to receive love is physical touch, but only when I have allowed myself like enough space to even want that. And that was like part of the problem with he and I, is that I was so busy like trying to like, again, living the identity of supermom, that by the end of the day, I didn't even allow enough for myself. So then I didn't want anything to do with him in that regard, because I was like, I just didn't create any space for myself. But when I am operating from a place of balance and I am giving myself space to just be with myself, then I actually am a very loving person in a relationship. But I can tend to pull back from that when I feel very depleted. And then it was just this, so I can understand, especially like if you're, I know it's a little bit different for you're talking about kind of the vulnerability piece of it. For me, it wasn't necessarily a vulnerability piece of it. For me, it was just like not having anything left.
Well, I can,
yeah.
I was thinking about that too as you were talking, because, even my B- effort, given the number of children I have and the big life that we have, sometimes just trying to get a B- at everything tapped me out.
Yeah.
Most days it tapped me out.
Yeah.
And what happens? It's not our kids that get the short end of the straw. It's our partners.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's really hard. This is hard. I just want to say, like, this is really hard stuff. And I want to invite people to give themselves some grace. This is not things we're taught as we grow up, especially my generation. I mean, and you're going to make a lot of mistakes,
Yeah.
and trial and error is sometimes the only way you actually learn a lot of these things.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree. Yeah.
It's, what we put on marriages, the expectations we have for partnerships. I think about this today versus, my grandparents. I mean, good God. I mean, it's no wonder that so many couples are struggling.
Yeah, well, we got movies like Jerry Maguire, and it's like, you complete me bullshit, right?
You gotta be my best friend and my business partner
everything,
and my confidant,
right?
And it's got to be mind-blowing sex, and and
right.
you also have to do half the chores. And,
all right. So we're all basically looking for unicorns. So there's that. Yes, I agree.
Well,
yeah.
As you think about, the next, 5 to 10 years of your life, there's going to be a lot of big shifts. Your kids are becoming more independent. What do you want for you, Amber?
It's funny you ask this, because I've been thinking a lot about this lately. And, a couple weeks ago, I had a moment where I looked at the calendar and I was like, holy shit, it's November. And I was like, God, like where, and I've been in a season in my business of this last year since I made a major brand pivot where I basically recreated an entire new business all over again. And it has been such a grind. It's been beautiful and I wouldn't change it for anything. And it's been amazing, but I've been so head down, day in, day out, working, 12, 14-hour days, like just wild. It's been crazy, but I've been just so in the grind that I feel like I picked my head up and I was like, oh my God, it's November. And I had this almost this wave of sadness and anxiety hit me at the same time, which was like, holy shit, am I losing sight of the big picture? Am I losing sight? I'm 45 years old. I'm getting ready to be 46. Am I losing sight of what really matters in what I want in my life and my, my relationships and all of that. And so, I think that one of the things that helps me to maintain that kind of that perspective is having quiet time in the morning. That for me helps me to start. But even if I can have quiet time in the morning, and then 15 minutes later, I'm at my computer, and then it's like, then it's like I'm all to it again, right? So I think, to kind of answer your question, I think for me, what I really want, yes, do I want, obviously an uber successful career? And do I have like career, my company aspirations and goals that I want as far as what I want to do with my job? Yes, for sure. But I think for me, what I really want to focus on and really want to achieve is really getting to this place where I'm not always raising the bar for myself. Oh. And as a perfectionist, and I'm sure you can understand this, like, and as an entrepreneur too, like how many times I was having this conversation with a woman who's got a company that's multiple seven figures. And she's like, Amber, I can't even tell you, I'm at multiple seven figures and I'm still at this place where it's like, okay, but when I get to this, then things are going to be easier. And she's like, I started telling myself when I first started my company, okay, when I could just get to 20K months, things are going to be easier. And then she's like, and now I'm at multiple seven figures. She's like, and I'm still telling myself that. And I recognize that pattern in myself. And so one of the things that I'm really, really working on right now is really cultivating a sense of presence in the day to day, and like really focusing on like, okay, like what's the big picture here? And like, yes, it doesn't mean I'm not showing up in my company and doing the thing. Like, of course, I'm still doing all the things because I have big goals, all of that, right? But it's really just trying to stay grounded in like the shit that matters, and really kind of just achieving that balance, I guess, if you will. I know balance is one of those words that everybody throws around, and like, what does really balance look like? Who knows? I haven't gotten there yet. If you find out, let me know, because that's something I struggle with. But yeah, I think for me, like 5-10 years, like, yeah, I just think that I don't really want to attach kind of my like where I want to be to like different achievements. I want to 5 to 10 years from now, I want to attach myself to a feeling, and I want to feel more present. I want to feel more grounded. And that's really kind of the goal that I'm really striving for.
I was just talking to somebody about this morning because they were doing the shoulds. I should eat healthier. I know I should get more protein. I know I should be, I said, I don't know that that's going to get you where you want to go. What is the feeling that you want? She was like, energy, vitality, vibrancy. That's what you want to sit with. You got to sit in that, sit in the reality of that. Imagine you are those things now.
Yeah.
From that place, what are you going to choose?
Danielle Laporte, and you may have read this book, but Danielle Laporte has an incredible, it's an older book called The Desire Map. And it's a great book if you're heading into the New Year and you really want like a actionable kind of goal setting strategy. She did this book. I think she wrote this book maybe 10 years ago. And it's a very, like I said, it's kind of step-by-step action. But what she talks about there is like setting your goals, not based on things, but based on how you want to feel.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I love
Exactly
that. I absolutely love that. So yeah, that's exactly what we're talking about. And so it's, and what I think what happens when you do that is it also opens up your eyes to how can I bring things in that can cultivate that feeling on the daily. So, one of the things she talks about in this book is like coming up with some like words, so like words that you want to feel for the year, right? So for me, I know like connection is a big one, because as an entrepreneur, an entrepreneur and a single mom, it can be a very lonely place, right? Like, especially when you're working from home, all of that. And so, I started thinking about like, okay, what are all the ways that I can, feel more connected? And I started writing down things that were like, even like microscopic things. And like one of the things that came up was like, okay, I can Zoom my mom and my sisters, and like I like get on a Zoom call with them, and I love that. So we do things like that, right? Versus like having to commit to like, oh, I'm going to go on this retreat and I'm going to do this. Like those are great for connection, but those may not be things that you can bring into your everyday. So what's really important, I think, is getting really clear on what do you want to cultivate, what feelings do you want to bring in, and then finding ways to do that, on the daily.
We started this conversation with, starting with the fear that keeps us so much from being able to do what we want to do, be who we want to be in the world. And that's a lot of what you work with, women who are who are dealing with a moment that's just, yeah, fear is a natural feeling when you're in the middle of a divorce.
Yeah.
But I think few of us actually sit in the feeling long enough to get really comfortable with it, to get to know it, to understand it, so that we can kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Almost diffuse it. You know, when we really sit with all those feelings, we find out that they're just feelings, right? Fear is fear. Okay, I'm afraid. Well, so what? You know, it's our perception about them, right? That is what gets us into trouble. I love this idea of, I mean, I've been talking about this a lot, you know, sort of embodying our feelings and the connection between head and heart. And for me, it's kind of the key to everything. Really getting comfortable in my own skin, in all of my feelings, in all of my complexity, whether it's fear or it's, I don't know, resentment or it's incredible joy. I mean, gosh, I actually have a hard time. Sometimes if I'm like too happy, experiencing too much joy, I start to feel guilty. Like I should be doing something more important, you know, like that's the Catholic in me, you know, that's hard. We talked a little bit about that. That's really hard to shake, you know?
Yeah.
When I was a kid, if you were having too much fun, I mean, someone would give you a job to do.
Sure.
You clearly had free time if you were having too much fun.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think there's so many beautiful threads that have woven through this whole conversation, and I'm just really grateful to have had it this morning. I think you're doing really, really beautiful work, helping people find themselves. And the tools that you're talking about to help a woman move through divorce with a sense of independence and success these are tools that will help her move through every challenging moment in her life, right?
Yeah.
The loss of a parent, the illness of a child, whatever it is, all the challenges that are going to come, because they're all going to come. We're all going to face them.
Yeah.
You know, and helping people do the hard thing helps people do more hard things. And I think what you're doing is really great.
I received that.
I'm really grateful. I'm grateful for you in the world in this, and just being really good at it.
Thank you.
You know, and making the choice to step out into that space.
Well, I appreciate that. And obviously this is why you and I vibe so well, because what I admire so much about you as well is just, using your experience and turning your vulnerability into like your superpower and really connecting with people is a gift. And so, I'm grateful that you came into my world for sure.
Well, I look forward to many more conversations like this. And I can't wait to just stay in touch and see where this journey takes us both.
Yeah, girl. Come on.
So if people want to learn more about all of the things that you do and do so well, where do they find you? How can they get in touch with you?
Yes, I appreciate that. So Instagram is my favorite platform. It really is me running my own Instagram. So if you send me a message, a DM, it is me responding. So hit me up over there. I'm just MS Ambershaw, Ms. Ambershaw. Ambershaw was taken, so I had to go with Ms. Ambershaw.
I kind of like it.
Yeah, Ms. Ambershaw. And I also have a podcast, the Wellness Revolution podcast. You could find me over there. And of course, ambershaw.com is my website. So hit me up. I would love to connect if there's something I said that really resonated or you've got a question. Definitely it's one of my most favorite thing is connecting with others in the community. So I appreciate it.
Amber, thank you. Thanks for being on Holy Schmidt.
Yes, girl.
Here's to next time.